So, one of the things I like to do is if I get too caught up in my head and I cannot write, like literally my mind is bombarded with so many other things other than the words that need to go on the page, I will go for a walk. Going for a walk is part of finding the process that allows me to generate more work. What do I mean by that? Well, the actual putting one foot in front of the other makes me think about putting one word in front of the other and seeing what happens. I actually have a destination. There's a couple of places that I like to go to write. This helps me clear my head, but also helps me to be in the world without being distracted by the world. It's not that I don't like my house. It's not even that my house is that distracting. It's got something to do with having space above my head. My artist personality needs to have space above my head. I'm tall, I'm a tall woman. Something about physical space actually influences my artist self. So I've come out. Writing is as much a physical experience for me as it is a cerebral and heart and soul experience. I'm very physical with my performances. I use my physicality to edit my work. I'm a very physical performer on stage, often gesticulating, my arms waving all over the place. Say hello for me. I will. Keep that in mind as well. Your physical surroundings and how your body actually engages with your writing process. Believe it or not, this is my local library, a library of things. Here people can borrow things like a bread making machine, sewing machine, Bosch drills. It's also the library. So this is another spot I like to hang out and have coffee. So this is where I ended up. This is where I wanted to come. This little cafe. And this guy here is Joe Duggan. Really cool poet from Ireland. Had a great gig with him the other day. It's very important to understand your writer's personality, where you want to write, how you write, and what kind of writing you do in the spaces that you go to, and what your writer needs to be able to flourish and get the creative juices going. Crystal Palace. Many people here from different backgrounds, but it's so live. But I get to be quiet in this corner. They play very cool music, so I get to feel like I'm in my house and I've got my own personal DJ. But yeah, vibes. Focus, focus, focus. Okay, so I'm back at my house and I'm thinking about what else I'd want to share with you. One of the things that we have to think about is that there's an actual other personality that needs to be engaged with or needs to be recognized, that's living inside you, that wants to be spoken to, that wants to be fed, nourished, that wants to have airtime. That part of yourself that has a slight quirk or tics of its own for you to be able to generate work. And one of the things that I would advise you as early as possible is to work out what your process is. Hence why you saw me going for a walk, sitting in the library of things, in my little cafe. Those kinds of tricks and tips, or let me say not tricks, let's say snacks, little food, bits of nourishment that help my writer feel acknowledged, to feel recognized that it's present. Otherwise, it's like any other child that doesn't seem to get any attention. It will become, cantankerous and block on you and decide it's not going to talk. So to avoid that, get in touch with your artist self, get in touch with your writer self. So for another example, like if you finished reading a book or finished a chapter of a book, for example, you might want to write down some words and reflect on that. You don't have to share it with anybody. You don't have to join a book club, but just allow your writer self to have a comment on that. If you see something on social media, you might just want to write down a few words about that, because ultimately it's about your writer knowing that it has an opinion and has space to have an opinion in your other thoughts, your other responsibilities, particularly your responsibilities as an artist who is working, a jobbing artist who's trying to get paid, trying to get the money. The other thing that I like to do is to really have moments where I am being completely honest with my writer self about what is possible in terms of time. I may not have time. I may be really running up and down conducting workshops for other folks, which is fine. And my artist writer self has to just step aside, but can actually be standing at my shoulder saying, you know what, you should try this with them, try this exercise, that worked for you. Ultimately, I think engaging with a practice, engaging with a ritual, engaging with a process, engaging with a structure, whatever you want to call it, that tells your writer self, you have room in my life. You know, it's not just there for you to just write the next poem for the next commission, write the next poem for the next theatre piece, write the next poem for the next article, write the next poem for the next blog, it needs to know that you still love it the way that you loved it when you first started writing, when you first took pen to paper, when you weren't getting paid. These are difficult times in real life. These are difficult times. Everybody's struggling. And who told us writers to choose poetry? How niche can you get? Who told us to choose poetry? And thank God for the upsurge of the literary industry to recognize poetry, particularly slam poetry, and what it's brought to our circuit, our scene, because it enables us to find people of like minds that we can connect with. So I think one of the things that we have to become really mindful of is not to get frightened that there's not enough room for us all, because there's enough room, there's enough work. But the one thing that makes us stand out is if your artist writer self believes that it has a higher level of integrity with you and how you engage with it. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. Anyway, thank you for listening, and I really hope that you get some cool hints and tips from what I have to offer about my own process. And yay, the Hip Yak Poetry School.